Welcome to Mountain Strong. Today I am in Canada. I haven't yet revealed on these videos that our family is in the process of transitioning from Alaska down to Arizona. I was, of course, working with the South Anchorage congregation there in Alaska, but I've taken up a new work to begin work with the West Valley congregation in the western suburbs of the city of Phoenix. And so, yes, I am moving from the subarctic to the desert. I am aware of that. Our family has made big transitions like this before, and even though I'm sure we're going to find the heat difficult, as everyone there says and everyone outside of there says, it's a dry heat. But anyway, today I find myself in the city of St. John, or outside of St. John, Fort St. John, and actually overlooking what I believe to be the Peace River. And I'm just taking that for granted because I saw some signs. The reason that we're stopping today, by the way, rather than stopping for the first 2 days, I had a lot of traveling to do on this, about 50 hours of driving. And it was kind of front loaded, and so Monday and Tuesday were very full days of driving, and it was very, very cold. But today the sun has come out, and it's really quite beautiful. I think I have some snow ahead of me though, so I am going to get right into the psalm today and get back on the road. After I do so, let's have a look together at Psalm 124. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, let Israel now say, if it had not been the Lord who was on our side, when people rose up against us, then they would have swallowed us up alive, when their anger was kindled against us. Then the flood would have swept over us, the torrent would have gone over us, then over us would have gone the raging waters. Blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey to their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. So this is the fifth of the songs of ascent, a song, in other words, that was a part of a group of songs that were gathered, many people believe, as songs that the Jews would sing together as they were pilgrimaging up to the city of Jerusalem. And when I think about these songs, I think that there is a purpose in their collection, both in helping the Israelites along their journey, but in general in describing some various aspects that are necessary for reflection regarding the life of faith and the journey of faith that we take. And so as I think about the reflection that this psalm promotes for our journey today, and as I think about the reflection that it would have promoted for them, I can think of nothing more dangerous along life's journey than to attribute victory to anything but the Lord. You see, in verses 1 and 2, the psalmist really wants the Israelites to realize that their victories have come from the Lord, and to realize that without the Lord they are nothing. You know, when we don't believe that our victory has come from the Lord, or when we fail to see that the Lord is the source of our benefit and the source of our good, then we can do any number of things. Some Christians, believing that maybe God is sort of a hands-off God and we dare not attribute what God has done to any blessing that we have received. Some of them don't engage in meaningful prayer, and thus they try to engage in those kind of battles on their own. Some Christians don't take advantage of what God has given them. They don't take advantage of their Christian family. And so they try to engage in their battles on their own, and they don't realize that the victories that they have experienced are because of their church family that God provided, and because of prayer that God answers. When we don't realize that our victory has come from God, we delete God from the picture. We try to win all of our battles by ourselves, and the sad message is that we're going to lose at one point or another. If it had not been for the Lord, the psalmist says, then we would have been swallowed up by the anger of those who hated us, verse 3. We would have been washed away by their flood, verse 4. In fact, we would be sunk, to put it in a modern term. In verse number 5, he says, the water would be washing over us right now. We would be at the bottom. We would have nowhere to go if it had not been for the Lord. And so, in verse 6, he says, blessed be God. In other words, he calls the people to do what they can to benefit God, to contribute to the praise, the glory, and the honor that is due to God. Blessed be God. Blessed be God because he has delivered us, he says. He has delivered us in verse 6 from teeth that would eat us, and he has delivered us, verse 7, from traps that would ensnare us. And so it's powerful, obviously, therefore, to reflect upon what we have been delivered from and the true impact of that. And then, of course, the main message of this psalm, who has delivered us? The psalmist calls his people to reflect upon the fact that their victory has come from God. Because as long as they are on the side of God, you know what? They and we who reflect upon this psalm as they did, they and we can both experience a great victory once again and throughout our lives. Our help, in verse 8, is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. We can expect great victories because we serve a great God. But again, if we attribute our victory to something else, and if we cut God out of our lives effectively by so doing, God may bless us, but we will not experience the final victory over sin and over death. The psalmist said in verses 1 and 2, if it had not been for the Lord, and then he pauses in between saying that twice, he says, let Israel now say. The psalmist was afraid of his congregation, of the body of God's people, the Israelite nation in the Old Testament, forgetting that their victory had come from God. And so if I can inspire you to do anything as a product of watching this video, I want you to make sure that everyone in your congregation, everyone in your home congregation, the church that you attend, that they all know that victory comes from God. Uphold that value and that thought in your life, and uphold it in their lives as well. And may God bless you today.